Hello bookworms, I'm Hannah, and this is part 3 of my Man Booker Prize video series in which I provide spoiler-free reviews of all the books longlisted for this year's prize. If you missed part 1 or 2 of this series, I'll drop links to those videos in the description box down below. Today I'm talking about 3 books from the longlist, and I'm going over them in order from least to top favorite in relation to each other, not in relation to the complete longlist. First up is The Ministry of Utmost Happiness by Arundhati Roy. Set in India, it follows 5 characters, though 2 of those characters are the central focus of the story: a transgender woman named Anjum who struggles to build her life in Delhi, and an activist/artist named Tillo who has many lovers, including a man wanted by the government for committing terrorist acts. I have 2.5 Man Booker nominees left to read, but as of right now, this is my least favorite book from the longlist, and it's one of my least favorite books I've read this year. I am eager to get this book out of my life, so I am going to keep my review short and simple. Roy attempts to accomplish a lot in this book. On a macro level, it tackles religious, political, social, and cultural issues relevant to India. On a micro level, it examines the lives of 2 unorthodox women and the way a society differentiated by caste and class has no room for unconventional people. It's an awful lot to squeeze into one book, and the novel is subsequently bloated. This might have been a compelling read if Roy had focused on her 2 main characters, but instead she's created a vast web with a dizzying number of characters who are entirely forgettable. On top of that, the narrative is labyrinthian, it spans several years and is not recounted in chronological order, and every time the narrative shifts to the perspective of a different character, it's disorienting. I've never encountered a book so convoluted and so lacking in story, yet written with maddeningly simple prose. Some music is just noise. This book is just words on a page. Once in a while, I encountered little prose gems buried in the text, but those moments were few and far between. Finding them was like taking a sip of water after wandering the desert for days. It was enough to wet my tongue, but did not quench my thirst for some semblance of an engaging novel, which brings us to the bottom line. The Ministry of Utmost Happiness is a swollen, aggravating patchwork of narratives, and I recommend it to anyone in the mood for a book that will bore them to tears. Next up is a literary debut, Elmet by Fiona Mosley. This is the story of a Yorkshire family that lives in a little copse in Elmet. It follows the perspective of 14-year-old Daniel, who resides in a house he built with his sister Kathy and their daddy, whose name I believe is John, but Daniel always refers to him as Daddy. When a wealthy landlord named Mr. Price claims the land they built their house on belongs to him, Daniel and his family must prepare to fight for the place they call home. This is a story of high stakes. Daniel and his family are poor. All they have is each other, their house, and the land they've built it on. Daniel and Kathy's mother is something of a mystery. She's been out of their lives more than she's been in it. But at the heart of the copse is an ancient tree Daddy refers to as the mother. So metaphorically, this land completes their family. It's their haven. High stakes are also found in the ways Daniel differs from the other members of his family. Daddy is a bear of a man, brutish in strength and notorious for being an undefeated boxer. Kathy is only a year older than Daniel, but she is a capable, fierce young woman who clearly takes after her father. By contrast, Daniel is a sensitive boy, someone who's better off running from trouble than sticking around for a fight. Despite being a modern tale, this book's rural setting allows for an interpretation of land ownership and criminal justice that's reminiscent of former times. Several reviewers have drawn a comparison between Elmet and Gothic literature because of its violent content and bloody substitutes for law and order. Mr. Price is a ferocious man who employs remorseless lackeys. Daniel and his family are dealing with dangerous people, so there's a great deal of tension, which is heightened by Daniel being in no position to fight on behalf of his beloved family. Mosley succeeds at maintaining high stakes, but she excels at evoking the senses and creating atmosphere. She transports readers with little details like the spatter of fat frying in a pan or the mineral scent of blood, and she creates a lush setting with descriptions of dappled light, quivering leaves, twittering birds, and rich soil. For all its strengths, this book does have a few weaknesses, namely Daniel Daniel's narrative voice being a little too eloquent for his upbringing and too advanced in terms of vocabulary and sophistication for his age. Also, there are chapters written in italics, narrated by Daniel at some point in the future, that subtly build suspense but could have been employed to create significant drama. With a little more development in, say, another 50 pages, this could have been a knockout read. Bottom line, comprised of arresting imagery, Elmet is a dispiriting yet lyrical meditation on power, exploitation, loyalty, and the bond between parent and child. Finally, my top pick from this group of Man Booker nominees is Solar Bones by Mike McCormick. It's narrated by a middle-aged Irish man named Marcus Conway, who sits in his kitchen on All Souls Day feeling disoriented and waiting for his wife to come home. The Angelus bell rings and Marcus lapses into a state of lucid recollection, regaling readers with a cascade of memories spanning from boyhood to his ascension to man, husband, and father. Given this book's stirring prose and the amount of attention it's garnered, it's hard to believe that McCormick had a difficult time finding someone willing to print it, but publishers were reluctant to take a chance on Solar Bones because it's written in one continuous sentence that spans the length of over 200 pages. On top of that, Marcus Conway free associates, drifting from one memory to another. McCormick pulls this off by employing linguistic ingenuity. He weaves words together with well-placed commas and shapes the long sentence into paragraphs, trading punctuation for indentations and white space. The end result is a narrative that's so rhythmic it's almost calming. If I hadn't been told before picking up this book that it has no full stops, I may not have even noticed it for several pages. So if its experimental structure seems intimidating, don't let that stop you from reading this book. It's far more accessible than it sounds. By all accounts, Marcus Conway is a relatively average man. He has a wife, a house, 2 kids, a job as a civil engineer that he both enjoys and excels at. So why read about his life? Because his memories, some of them delicate and sentimental, others painful and corrosive, reveal the human condition in a way that's both enlightening and relatable. Foremost among the book's many themes is parenthood, the wonder of having a child, and the fascination that accompanies watching them grow to discover their own identity and personality. Marcus also ruminates on the facets of marriage and the many layers of intimacy that unveil themselves the longer you're with a person, especially when the words "in sickness and in health" demand that a person assume the role of caretaker. Marcus dwells heavily on masculinity, feeling that some of the different roles he's had to play in his life have caused a declension in his masculinity. He ponders the roles men play in designing systems, developing land, or shaping the world, such that his thoughts swing from rural life and raising a family to the great tapestry of history and time that ties all of us together. Ultimately, Marcus marvels at how precarious all of life is, inadvertently reminding each of us to be grateful for this moment, to appreciate our existence, and to understand that every experience we've had, be it big or small, good or bad, has shaped us as individuals and placed us in this moment. Me recording this video, you watching it, and all of us joined together in conversation over this one book. Bottom line, masterfully crafted with cadent prose, Solar Bones is a riveting study of the frailty of life, the bonds of love, and the wonders of the universe. That concludes today's Man Booker Prize wrap-up. Tell me in the comments below what you think of the books discussed in today's video. Thanks, everybody!